Hey, thanks for joining us again. My name is Jason Marsdale. I'm Director of Strategy here at Brown Superstores and joined again with David Cheatham, who is change practitioner, educator, and executive coach at Transform Communications.
And welcome. I'm so happy to be back with you, Jason. I'm excited about the positive feedback we've gotten for our videos, that we've started a couple of months ago now, and rolling on into your new leadership role and incorporating feedback from our networks about the topics people would like us to sort of drill down on. And one that you brought to my attention is reorgs, which can be for many reasons. It can be because of growth in the company, a change of strategic direction, moving from a legacy product or service to something that's new, returning to a legacy product. It could also be, it could also include new structures, not just in organizational sense, but physical structures through expansion or retraction and contraction and so forth. So we agreed to spend a couple of minutes today talking about how we can apply some of the best practices we've already talked about in change management specifically to reorganizations. And for those who are new joining us, we have talked so far about three key drivers of successful change management: leadership, how you lead change, how you manage all the stakeholders involved in a change, and communicating the change, both before, during, and after the change. So we're going to touch upon those briefly as we talk about reorgs, and I know Jason's got a couple of great questions to stimulate the conversation. Well, we'll start with the communication component of in reorgs, because we know that once leadership starts talking about new positions, new places in the organization, of whatever their origin is, that it needs to involve communication. And we talked earlier about not making assumptions. When you go through a change, the last thing you want to do as a leader, or just broadly a change champion, is to number one, change the communication channels. For example, if you're going through an expansion or contraction of the organization, you want to use the existing channels of communication that people are used to and not change that up. If you want to make a change to those channels and those ways of communicating after the reorg happens, that's fine. That can of course be a major component of the reorg, is to change the communication channels, to standardize them, for example, introduce new platforms. And that makes sense to the new team going forward. But the current team, if there are two teams that, for example, merging, each of those teams should use its current pre-change, pre-reorg channels of communicating to communicate all the changes to it. So that is not a time to make a change in how you communicate. You should also step up the feedback you're soliciting from all stakeholders. That sounds very intuitive, but when you're in the throes of a reorg and the stakes can be high, some of those intuitive best practices fly out the window. So
Yeah.
that and Jason, I'm sure you've seen that in your career as well. And the folks are well-meaning about it. Their heads down. They're trying to make the right, smart decisions for a number of people. It's a lot of times a larger organization is going to merge with a smaller organization, and the look and feel will be very different. The span of control is different. The titles are different, and of course that can all be threatening to both groups. How does this smaller organization really get integrated into the larger organization that has its own processes and such? So that leads us into a discussion of culture. We talked in an earlier segment about that culture is so often the big bugaboo in change management, and a lot of folks are really skittish about it. And I get that. If we go around saying, well, company A that is merging with company B, in this case the smaller company, we say, oh, they have different cultures. They have, of course, different origin stories. They have different histories. One may be publicly traded, the other not, et cetera. One family owned, the other not. Well, the good news is that culture is really fundamentally behavior. Culture is behavior, and behavior is culture. That's really what we're saying. We're saying, well, we have a culture of following up with our customers. We have a culture of staying after hours to get it right. Or we have a culture that says we have flex time. We have a culture that says we're gonna give you a remote option for working, maybe half the week, or et cetera. That's our culture. Well, what we're saying is that's the way we behave. That's what we want to behave that way, and we think it's valuable. And with any luck, leadership will always be justifying that for the business case. So again, the good news is we can change behavior, and we can model. Leaders should of course model the behavior. So if you have two organizations, you model the change / culture / behavior, and that becomes, whether it's the new culture, the adapted culture, and so forth, and of course you make it visible, and people will see that. They will say, okay, well, this is, we literally and symbolically see how people are behaving at the top of the organization. And that also, frankly, gives us a chance to say, is this the way I want to behave? No, sure. Is this the way I want to behave? And the answer could be, I don't think so, or I'm not sure yet. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, because people want proof if they're going to make important decisions about their career and their lives. But that's why the leaders need to come out and communicate very forthrightly and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and of course we're going to walk the talk as well. And this is your chance to, you other folks in the organization, our colleagues, to decide, is this behavior that you resonate with? And I think it's that easy and that hard, but we want to shy away from making culture this big bugaboo, because it really is about behavior. And anybody who sincerely wants to change their behavior can. Blanket statement that it is, but it really is true. And with the committed folks around them as leaders and change sponsors, can make it happen. And of course, folks like I can coach that to happen. So that's a couple of concepts there about when you have a restructuring of multiple organizations coming together.
Do you have any examples that you could potentially touch on when it comes to meshing of cultures? Like I've seen this take place with Amazon post-acquisition of Ring. And so Ring, Jamie Siminoff, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Great shop over there, way less formal in their day-to-day. At least that was my perception from what you would see at Amazon. And I think that there was hints of that Ring culture that stayed, at least for the first couple years post acquisition. And as I'm talking and listening to you, I'm thinking, how do you get a team that believes their culture to be what is so great about the company to embrace the culture of a larger entity that has on paper done incredible things? And so why wouldn't you want to model off of that? So there's this bit of a power struggle is a word that comes to mind. I don't know if that's necessarily correct, but between those two cultures, and just trying to navigate through that. And how do you get your team to really embrace the culture of something if they don't see, of the larger entity that's making that acquisition, when they don't see there being an issue with their current culture?
Now that's a great question, Jay. Exactly. And of course, most companies, well, again, this is a generalization. Most companies are successful, sometimes very successful. Sometimes the reason that they're being acquired is because they have been successful, of course, because the larger company wants those skills, wants that product placement and presence in the marketplace and such. That only makes sense, and wants to tap into that brain power. So you're right. So the typical example would be an organization that's successful, acquiring another organization that's successful, in their own right. And as you say, there has to be some marriage there. I think it's also insightful that you mentioned this idea that with the Amazon, for example, acquisition, that it is organic. And I mentioned this earlier. Organizations are organic in the sense that they're almost inhaling and exhaling. Organizations inhale people and exhale people and products and services. It's a living, because after all, organizations are a lot of people that get together to do something. So and we should look at change that way. We should look at change as an organic, in and out, breathing process. So to your point about getting the buy-in on the culture, leadership, of course, makes the business case. Starts with the business case. We believe that we will even have more success by coming together and adopting these behaviors. Now, are we going to guarantee this is going to happen? Well, no, that would be a malpractice. That would be communications malpractice, I would call it. If a leadership came out and said, we're going to guarantee the stock's going up next year and whatever. Of course, that you're not going to say that, and nobody really does know. But to make the business case, and most businesses will do that, particularly in an acquisition. They'll make that business case, say, well, this is a model that works. Our customers are asking for it. With your new group added on, we'll be able to fulfill that new demand, et cetera, and grow. But what we often don't do as change sponsors and leaders is to have that emotional component, because change is emotional, and we know this. Change is emotional, and whether that's a personal change that you want to take on, and we're in the season of New Year's resolutions. And so whether that's a personal change that I think of as energizing, or an organizational change that often is exhausting, we know this intuitively as adults, and so we need to do everything we can to make that organizational change as energizing as that personal change, that new workout regimen, that new diet, that new job, that new promotion, that new opportunity. That's exciting. That's liberating, But then we go to work, and people say, you got to make this change. And then we come home and say, oh, nobody likes change. Change is awful. Well, we just admitted that there are a whole range of things in life that we love change. And I always tell my clients, if we weren't in the change business, we wouldn't have new products and services and new businesses and new employees. That's all change. So we have to always be looking at ways to make an organizational change similar to a personal change, and we can do that. And part of that, again, is that behavior. So we need to add the emotional component. We're pretty good at the business case. If we take out that emotional piece and know that people's reaction to change will be emotional primarily, regardless of the numbers. I mean, you can promise somebody double their pay and a great bonus and whatever you want to promise them, but there's still that instinctive. It's changing, it's different, and you are imposing it on me. I chose that New Year's resolution. I chose to lose 50 pounds. Maybe my doctor wanted me to as well. But you're not internalizing that. You're coming to me as an employee and saying, well, make this change and report back to me. And that's because we've got the culture of, broadly speaking in North America, this culture of getting the data. So we need to combine, and we can talk about this in another segment, we need to combine the emotional with the data. And so often we only go out with the numbers. And the numbers take us just so far. And again, we know this intuitively. It's difficult, and the change team is in there, heads down, as we said a few minutes ago, and trying to do the right thing and making the numbers work and bringing in the experts and bringing in the legal piece. And that's a lot of effort, and this is not their day job and all that. And then they're so proud and they're ready to make that announcement of the acquisition. But the emotional piece, which is exactly what's going to happen when your acquired employees get on that Zoom call. They're going to say, oh, wow, how does this affect me? Yeah. They don't say, how does this affect my role? They don't say, how does this affect my employees? Probably. Let's be frank. They say, how does this affect me? Where's me? I don't see me here. I see these boxes on the org chart. Where's me? But leadership thinks, well, gosh, we've got this great business case. Why aren't these people excited? Because we got the numbers to back it up. And after all, this is a business.
Yeah.
So again, that's another nice segment we can go into.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's some great points. I've just taken a few notes here. And so, like culture is behavior, change is emotional, combining emotional with data, and how does this affect me? I think really good points and stuff that we can elaborate on in future segments.
Well, we will do that. I'm excited. And again, thank you so much for this series. I'm excited about the feedback we're getting. And again, reach out, as I know you'll do in your network and I do in mine. Any follow-up questions, happy to address those. And of course, send us suggestions on future topics that we can address.
For sure. I definitely appreciate the time as always, and looking forward to getting your feedback again. As David touched on, please, reach out to myself as well, if not David, and give us any of your feedback, any questions you have, so we can kind of gear future topics toward those. So, thank you so much for the time again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.